Good evening. This is the Chicago Computer Society South Suburban Computer Club meeting for the month of June 2025. Tonight we have a guest giving a presentation. I have a small one, and then I have additional Windows information. I have a large handout for everybody. Thursday night is Northwest Computer Club meeting, but we won't get the invite until tomorrow sometime. And then a week from today is the Linux SIG meeting next Tuesday night. So with that out of the way, what I'm going to do right now is have Ron Friedman give his presentation.
Well, that would be me. I'm Ron Friedman. And we're talking about it's part of a 5 program series that we're doing down here in the South Suburban chapter, as well as the West Suburban chapter. Same 5 pieces. This is the second piece. This is session 2, and it's all about the relative simplicity of going from Windows 10 to Windows 11, if that's something you want to do. And as we talked about last week, and I'm sure it's come up, Windows 10 is not going to go away on October 14th. It's going to continue to run, and if you have Windows 10, you're pretty much going to be guaranteed that if your computer doesn't blow up for other reasons, it's going to be working just fine. The issue with Windows 10 is it's going to become less and less supported over time. The people who make your browsers are not going to be supporting older and older versions of Windows 10. That in some cases that's already happened. The very first versions of Windows 10, there are a number of browsers that do not support the very first versions of Windows 10. Windows 11 is Windows 11. It's been out for a while. And when things work right, upgrading from Windows 10 to Windows 11 is rather straightforward. I will tell you, in the systems that I have done, 90% of them that test as compatible with Windows 11, they just run, they do their update, they're done. Another 5% are a little bit more tricky, and then 5% are the kinds where I no longer have hair on the top of my head because I keep pulling it out. With regards to Windows, I use other operating systems too. I can break them all. I'm also the kind of person who thinks index cards are a good piece of technology, and I'm a cheapskate. So if any of these things kind of mesh with you, that's kind of me. Today we're talking about what happens if my PC tests satisfactory that I can upgrade to Windows 11 on the PC that we have. And one of the things that we talked about at that time was to run a couple programs on your existing PC to see where that is. One of the things that was suggested is some sort of an inventory system that tells you everything that's on that computer, and the other one was Microsoft's own PC Health Test, which is downloadable. Let me pop that open here. Let me open up that camera. Alrighty, so here we are. This is a program called BellArc Advisor. I'm gonna also change my view here so I can see myself. That didn't do it. I got the same problem I had before. Okay, multi-speaker. No, that doesn't help me either. All right, I won't worry about it. Hide self view, no. Yeah, had the same problem last time. I'm going to have to figure that out. In any case,
go to speakers view on the view in the upper right hand.
Yeah, that's where I am, and I see, and it doesn't show me as the speaker? Because it's my speaking that I'm doing.
Well, it's showing your belly arc screen right now. Well,
Doesn't make any difference. I don't see that. Okay, you see it, but I don't. The thing is, on my screen, I don't see the speaker view. I'm seeing you every time you talk, Tim. So that's okay, no problem. I'm just going to go back to gallery view and then make sure that I can see myself. So please hang on a moment while I get around my camera here. There we go. All right. So, BellArc Advisor will give you an inventory of your computer. Takes about maybe 3 to 8 minutes to run, depending on how slow your computer is. And we're going to use part of this today in our discussion about what do I do if Microsoft's PC Health Test says everything's okay. So I'm going to open up the PC Health Test here. And here's PC Health Test, and it says that my PC meets the Windows 11 requirements, and I can see all the results here, and it's telling me it's all these nice green check marks every place. This is a computer that can be updated. You'll see one of the things it's talking about right here on screen. It has a CPU that is part of the 8th generation Intel CPUs, which is the very minimum that Microsoft recommends if you want to upgrade to Windows 11 without issue. I have more than enough RAM. It says I have 8 gigabytes of RAM. Absolute minimum is 4. If you have 16, all the better. And I have space on my hard drive to do the update. So this minimum report is telling me, yeah, Microsoft says this should work. Doesn't always work because you may have tweaked it some way that is not compatible with a direct upgrade. We'll talk about that. And this report here from BellArc tells me in more detail how much RAM, what type of RAM do I have. It tells me about what kind of how old my BIOS is, which we may or may not ever need to know about. It's telling me what my user accounts are. If you have a computer that has multiple users on it, it tells me all my different accounts that are on here. It tells me what type of internal electronics are on there. What kind of a network card do I have? What kind of USB am I using? It tells me what kind of a display. For example, one thing the PC Health Test does not tell you is if you're using a VGA monitor, maybe it'll work. It should work on Windows 11. Maybe it won't. If you're using some really old USB 2.0 devices, not the problem with USB 2.0, it's the devices, their firmware on those USB devices may not be compatible with Windows 11. So if you have some sort of a scanner or something like that that's using a really old version of USB 2.0, it may not be compatible. Most of them are, though.
Here is your reminder.
It's telling me here
Ride the bike.
what my communications are. So it's telling me what kind of a network I have. It's telling me my IP address, which you may want to know. It might be good to know what brand of network card is. So in case the update doesn't work, you'll be able to find out. It needs a Realtek 2200 card. I don't know what mine is here. That's probably an Intel card. And no, not with a physical address of 9C. It's not Intel. But it says, oh no, that's the Wi-Fi. I don't care about my Wi-Fi. I want my hardwire network connection. Of course, I'm not connected to a hardwire, so it's not going to know. The other thing that you're going to want to know is, your printers that are on there. You're going to want to know what applications you're running. So I usually tell people the very first thing you want to do after you get this initial report, you can always run this report again and again, is run updates on your operating system, run updates on your applications, and run updates on your drivers so that you're as most recent as possible. Remember, you are not going to be using Windows 10 anymore. So if it changes the way your programs work a little bit, you may have to do that anyhow under Windows 11. So it's usually a good idea to get all your operating system applications and drivers updated. The other thing is that you may want to consider before you actually do the update, and we're not going to do the update this time. We're going to do the update in August. We're actually going to run an update. The other thing you may want to consider is, do I want to add more memory? If you have a desktop computer, a box, you may have options to relatively easily change it. The BellArc advisor here will tell you what kind of memory to get. You can go to your favorite retailer or online source for a memory and be able to add more if it's compatible. BellArc advisor will tell you how much more memory you can add to your system. There are other services other than BellArc. I chose BellArc because this is a free report. You don't have to pay for it. It looks kind of nice. But all this information is actually built into Windows itself, and you'll have all that information. So you may want to consider upgrading. As I said, Microsoft says 4 gigabytes minimum. Chances are you may have 8 gig, you may have more, you may have 12 or 16, which will make Windows 11 run that much nicer. So once you've got all your software updated and everything, you can run another report. Make sure, you might have noticed on my report here, one of the things that it says it didn't have in the upper right corner is I'm missing some security updates. So you may want to make sure you get all your updates for security and things like that before you start. The next thing you have to do is prepare for backing up your system. You're doing an update of an operating system, and it might just work, and you can be the kind of guy that says, hey, I'm just going to do the update because Microsoft says everything is good, and go ahead and do it. I'm not sure that's really where you want to go, but you can. I'm going to change my camera here real quick again. There we go. And but you may want to do a backup. And so I generally say, hey, get one of these kinds of backup devices. This is a USB connectable hard drive. They also come as USB connectable SSD drives. Doesn't really make any difference what you want to make sure is it's larger than the hard drive on your computer, because you're going to be backing it up, and you may have to make several copies of some stuff in addition to your backup. And this is a good device to have, and it just plugs in. It uses a regular USB connection, plugs in. It's detected as another drive on your computer. One of the things you'll want to do, though, is you're going to want to format this drive, and you don't want to use the Windows normal formatting. The Windows normal formatting is NTFS, the new technology file system, which came out way back in the 1990s. And it's fine. It's worked fine. There's different versions. It's been updated over time, and it does read up. But one of the things it's really meant for is security. Who owns it? Do they have rewrite privileges? Yeah, just all sorts of details about the files and file structure on it. It is it's good for when you're actually running Windows, but we're talking about doing a backup. And some of these, like this particular one, this particular drive is a 1 terabyte drive. And NTFS, if I format it, it will be fine, except I can't take it anyplace else except for another Windows machine, likely, and have it work. One of the more universal formats that you can have is what's called exFAT, EXFAT format. So when you format it, and you format it using your drive properties in Windows, when you format it, if you format it as exFAT, which will be, you'll have NTFS or exFAT are your options. It will work just fine. You might be offered FAT32. I wouldn't bother with FAT32. Just do exFAT and you'll be fine. The nice part about it is when you back up your files to it, exFAT has no security profiles, remembering who the owner was or what permissions for reading and writing there were. It's just a file system that stores files. And you can take it to a Mac, you can take it to a Linux box, you can take it to another Windows computer, and they will all be able to read an exFAT drive, which is kind of a nice thing if you have to recover and you have another computer that you can recover from. You don't have to worry about all the permissions that were on the files. So that's one thing that you want to get, because you're going to do a backup before you actually hit that button and say upgrade. The other thing you're going to want is a flash drive. And the reason you're going to want a little flash drive, a little thumb drive, or whatever, people call these all sorts of things. But what you want it for, you want to make it, it's going to be at least 8 gigabytes. I don't know where you can buy a flash drive anymore that's 8 gigabytes, but it's going to be, you're going to empty it out. You're going to format this, and you're going to use this to, if necessary, if the download from Microsoft doesn't allow you to upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11 directly from their download, you're going to use their media creator tool, or you're going to use a third-party tool like Rufus, which is a freely available media creation tool, and you're going to put the new operating system on your flash drive. And both the media creator tool and Rufus and other ones that are like it, it's all self-explanatory. You start them up and bingo, it takes the download from Microsoft for Windows 11, the version you have. So if you have Windows 10 Home, you'll use Windows 11 Home. If you use Windows 10 Pro, you use Windows 11 Pro. If you have Enterprise, more power to you. Make sure you know what your license key is, because you're not going to be able to find it in the BIOS of the computer or anything like that. So that's one of those things you're going to want to make sure you track down. But there are other versions of Windows 11 that you might be looking at, but those are the big three. There's Windows 11 EDU, which is the educational license, which isn't the same as Windows 11 or Windows 10S, which is a managed education license. The EDU license is not a managed license. But that may be what you have on your system right now. So you have two pieces of media. Now, this device here, the USB hard drive, they tend to run at, if you have a terabyte one, you might have one sitting around the house that you don't mind eliminating everything that's on it, or if you're going out and buying a new one, you're talking between $50 and $150, depending on the size. And they don't require any power supplies or anything. You just plug in your USB and they are self-powering. Let's see what's next. All right, so now let's say you're getting close. That you have some time and you want to do things. One of the things you're going to want to do is turn off your antivirus. So when you're doing the update, you don't want your antivirus running, because it might stop your update. So you don't want that. You want to turn it off entirely for the short time. Now, if you turn it off, you probably don't want to be browsing the web a whole bunch. But just be aware. You probably want to test each of the applications that are on your computer, especially if you haven't used it a while, and see if it still works. See if you even care if it works. Maybe there's some programs on your computer that you haven't used in 15 years that you've carried over from Windows XP to Windows 7 to Windows. Well, if you went to Windows 8, I feel sorry for you, but you went to Windows 10 from Windows 7, and so they've been around a while. And you may not even use it anymore, may not even run it anymore. Just to be aware, test your applications so that you know how they work. You know that they work, because there's nothing worse than doing an upgrade to Windows 11 and an application doesn't work, but it didn't even work in Windows 10. So it's not magically going to repair itself because you go to Windows 11. And then you want to do a backup. And there's different kinds of backup. There are files that you want to back up, like all the files on your desktop, maybe. All the files in your libraries that you have. Windows 10 keeps files in libraries. There's probably some things like your bookmarks that you have in your browsers. Just in case you want to do that, you'll be able to export those as files and keep them, as well as there's a hidden folder in your user profiles called app data, and it has a bunch of working files that your computer keeps. You may or may not want to copy those over in your backup. One thing that you can do is you can use a backup program. There's one built into Windows, Windows 10. It says it's backup for Windows 7. They never came out with one for Windows 10, and you can run a backup from your Windows 10 computer to your USB hard drive and back up all your files using that, and it will prompt you for what drives do you want to back up. You only really need to back up your operating system drive, your C drive. You don't need to back up any of your other drives, because when you upgrade to a Windows 11, it's only going to install itself on the C drive. So you don't really need to back up anything else other than your C drive. After you've backed up, and maybe you're just going to determine what you're going to back up. Maybe you're not actually going to back up now. You certainly want to, you've done all these updates, you put in these new drivers, you certainly want to reboot your computer. When it reboots, you're going to wait 10 minutes for everything to settle down, kind of like Wayne talking about how much his CPU is just chugging away. You want the computer to kind of level off in what it's doing, and then reboot again, because you want to make sure that after you've done any updates and any changes that you may have done, you've added memory maybe, you want to make sure your computer boots up and that you can log in to your computer. One of the things we mentioned in the last month's meeting is make sure that the account that you're going to be using for logging in and stuff is an account that has administrator privileges, and you know the administrator privileges password. Because if you're just logging into an account that has standard capabilities, you may need to be an administrator when you start up Windows 11, and you may need to know what that username is and that password. So something else is to kind of jot down on a post-it note someplace. Again, after you're done with the update, you can always change the password, burn the post-it note, go on with your life. This report here that we looked at, this CellArc Advisor report. Let me show that back up on screen here. Okay. So this report here, you may want to print it out as a PDF and then put it on your flash drive. That way you will know when you update your Windows 11, you have a complete record of what your Windows 10 device was. Because if you have to look up something, the information may be there that you may need to know. So I would say one of the things that you want to put on your flash drive or on that big USB hard drive is put your file on that so that you have it. In fact, I would say don't use the little flash drive. Use the big USB drive unless you're the kind that just likes to try things out and see what happens. Put it on the big USB drive because your backup's not going to take up that entire drive. If you have a 1 terabyte C drive, you're probably pushing things. But then again, you can always get a 2 terabyte external hard drive. The price isn't going to be that much different. And I haven't gone out to buy 1 terabyte external drives for a while. They may not even make 1 terabyte drives anymore. They may all be, if you go to Best Buy, it might be 2 terabyte and above. So I unfortunately I did not double check that before today's meeting. So another thing you're going to do probably after printing that PDF report is you're going to check your event logs. And the 2 event logs that you want to check, and built into Windows, there's a program called Event Viewer, which you can find as part of your Windows administration tools in the Start menu. The 2 you want to look at is the System Event Log and the Application Event Log. And when you're in Event Log, I wonder if I can bring that up here so we can see it real quick. Let me, if I can bring it up, I will show it here. Event Viewer. Oh, we might be able to show this on our camera here. Okay, let me show this on the camera. Okay, so here is Event Viewer. There is a place in Windows Event Logs called the System Logs. This particular computer has 7,700 events in it, and there's an Application Log here which has 3,026. Those happen to be very low numbers. My other computer has 44,000 events. Even so, we're not going to look at them all. We're going to filter the log and only look for problems. So I clicked on filter the log. I'm going to look at critical, warnings, and errors. And there's a whole bunch of errors today at 6:30 p.m. Great. I'll have to look at, most of these look like they were installer errors. An application hung. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look, and the reason for, I know what happened here is I changed off of being a domain connected computer to a standalone computer, and a lot of this is from running that mode. I'm going to go down to some previous days here. You can see here. So what you want to do is you want to look over the last 2 weeks, and if anything there is unaccountable, why is the error here? So here I'm looking. Security Center showed, of course, it was back on 8/1/2024 last time this computer booted up. Because I had to find a Windows 10 computer. Don't have very many of those hanging around anymore. But here's another. No, that was an error, and it kind of tells you a little bit that about what's going on, you kind of have to make a determination. Is this something that is useful or not useful? Here's that Windows machine interface. This is kind of what Wayne was talking about. That was one of the Windows machine instrumentation is an inventory application. It's actually checking your internals of your computer. This is only a warning, and it's telling me one of the systems in here, it couldn't find what it was looking for. So that may or may not be a problem unless you recognize what it is and say, uh-oh, it's not working. I need to make sure that's working. So this kind of gives you an idea about some of the things that are going here. Trend Micro, which happens to be the anti-malware that's on this computer. It said, what does it say? I know, I want to know that one. So its own program had a problem. But remember, we're going to turn off our anti-malware software when we do it, so that may not be an important issue at all. So anyway, you check your event logs. Say this is the application log. I can look at the system log, do the exact same thing. I can filter it and see if there's any critical warnings, errors that are happening here. And it tells me I have nothing that's been bad with this computer. There's 0 events out of 7,736 that fall into the categories of critical warnings or errors, which is a good thing. My configuration for my computer may be pretty stable. Let's see here. Okay, so I checked my event logs. The next thing I may want to do, let me get back to my camera here. The next thing I may want to do is actually run a check disk on the hard drive. CHK, so you do this from a command prompt with administrator privileges. However you like to do it, it's usually a right click on the command prompt, the field, or maybe you have your setup for PowerShell. Either way, either one will work as long as you're running as an administrator. It's CHK DSK space /F for fixing, and you want to fix the drive, at least detect if there's any problems with the drive. Remember, you're upgrading from Windows 10 to Windows 11, and Windows 11, if it sees a hard drive with a problem, it may not do the update. So you want to make sure you get that in place. There may be a couple other things that you may or may not have running. One of them is BitLocker. BitLocker is an encryption on your hard drive. It encrypts all the files in a particular volume on your hard drive. You may want to, you'll definitely want to turn that off before migrating and trying to install Windows 11 on top of it. That takes a while. If you have a volume, C volume or D volume or whatever, but if you're turning it off, if you're turning BitLocker off across your entire hard drive, which is my recommendation, it's going to take a while to unencrypt all those files. Do it overnight. No, don't wait. Don't think it's going to be done over a cup of coffee, unless you drink coffee like I drink coffee in a big jug. The other thing you're going to do is if you were short on disk space for whatever reason and you were using file compression for general storage of files, you're going to want to turn off file compression, because when Windows 11 tries to install itself and it finds compressed files, it may say, I don't like this. I don't understand what's there. You don't even know if the files are in good condition. So if you have space on your hard drive, you definitely want to uncompress those folders. That means you have less space on your hard drive, but you don't want file compression when you're doing the upgrade. Couple other things, you can clear all your browser caches. You can clear out your temp folder, especially if you're going to do another backup, which would be my next step after you've done all that. You're going to reboot the computer again. You're going to wait 10 minutes for everything to settle down. You're going to reboot it again, make sure you're able to log in, and then you can do another backup. So I mentioned there's Windows 7 backup. There's you can actually clone hardware. I don't have my cloner. You can take the if it's something where you take the hard drive out, like a desktop computer. You can take the hard drive out, and if you have another hard drive of the same size or larger, you can do a sector by sector clone without having to use your computer at all. It's just going to do it. Those run, yes, there's several companies that make them. They kind of look like hard drive docking stations, but they're specific to cloning. And they don't require you to hook up to the computer in order to do it. They will clone one hard drive to another. And the nice thing about it is you can walk away. You can be, and, do something else. And when it's done, it's done. So if something should happen to your hard drive, you have another hard drive that you can plug in and just go right away. There's some other software that you can do, like Clonezilla is another one that will allow you to clone your drive. It can be done without having any separate hardware. Just this thing. You can clone to it. Clonezilla it comes in both a command line version, and there's an add-on which has a graphical user interface and do it. And I'm sure some of you may know other good products that will be relatively easy to use for cloning. Clonezilla has been around forever, and it's proven. EASYS makes a lot of good stuff. You pay for it, where you don't have to pay for Clonezilla, but there are some third-party products out there that will also make software clones. And once you're backed up, you'll be ready to go to Windows 11. And that's it.
Okay. Well, Ron, offhand, we have a situation where people need to understand a couple of factors, and one has to do with the flash drives. If you're creating the Windows Media, yes, you have to have a dedicated, you keep it, flash drive, 8 gigs minimum.
Mm-hmm.
In my handout for tonight, I have a document on how to create a rescue disk, and people 110 teach you how to create that. The minimum is 16 gigabytes. And what happens is that and a backup software. Microsoft doesn't like you to use the Windows 7 built-in backup program for years because it's too old. They recommend you get a third-party one that also has verification of your backup after the fact. And for each of those, you have to create a rescue media. And that requires a flash drive. Mac Reflect version 8 free is still around. It takes 500 megabyte flash drive. If you can find it, I've got one. But anyway, and it's in use. But also too, another one is easiest to do backup. That requires you to create a rescue disk. These are disks that once you create them, all of them, you have to test your system to be able to boot up into them. It may require some changes in settings to do so. But if any of the drives you use have anything on them of value to you, these programs making a bootable flash drive are going to blow everything on that drive away.
Oh, yeah.
If you use larger flash drives, larger capacity, that's fine, but you're going to want to put data on those drives. And periodically, many of these require being remade. And as soon as they're remade, it blows away everything on the drive.
Yep.
So you've got
Yep.
to understand that factor. Another thing that is a real factor too is if you can, don't use flash drives, especially if the ports you have to plug into are USB 2. Use
Mhm.
some kind of an SSD via USB. You'll be much, much happier with the performance of speed. Otherwise, it's going to drag you down to a crawl. Using a USB hard disk for backup purposes is okay. I've got more than a dozen different drives, anywhere between 1.5, and 2 terabytes in size. And I use them, even though all of them are USB 3 drives. It's a case where most of the old systems I have only had USB 2 to plug into. So the end result is it's going to cut down the speed and it's going to take longer to get the backups done. So those are some realities. Now, when you creating and using the Windows installation media drive and the rescue disk, both of them have the ability to do a repair on your computer for at least some problems without being real geeky. But there are times when you got problems and it can get very, very geeky. And some of the tools that Windows still has and recommends using are some that look like they came out of the Stone Age. That's how old they are. And they're very primitive. I know I use them. I have to for certain instances. That doesn't mean everybody. But tech support's another area that is going to fade over time from people's mind who know 10 real well and how to maintain it, how to fix it, etc. You have to keep that in mind. The rescue media from Microsoft, you should recreate that annually. If you're on 10 and you're going to stay on 10, make sure in October you download the last release of 10 before you do anything else, and have a copy on another drive or two so that if the drive in your computer goes out, you still got copies of it. The rescue media, you have to recreate annually at least, but you can also create it more frequently, like semi-annually or quarterly. It takes quite a while to do it. It has 3 different copies of the install media on that rescue disk, but they're not for doing an in-place upgrade to repair your sick system. They are only there if you have to do a clean install. So that's another source of recovery information. Outside of that, you do have an easy time. I happen to have a Windows 10 Today drive. It got corrupted in something else I was doing. I recovered it, and then I updated it and the application software. And when I got done, it says you're eligible for Windows 11. Do you want me to go ahead and do it? I said, sure thing, go ahead. And other than one interruption in the beginning where you have to say, okay, go ahead, it'll save everything that's out there on the drive while upgrading to the new version. And then you have nothing to do until it needs to be restarted to configure all the update. But one thing that a lot of people don't understand, when you are upgrading an existing OS to another OS, you're pulling along all the imperfections and corruption that may be on that system, old system, into your new system, and that can cause you problems. So that's an issue that you have to understand. That's why some people say, I just want a list of all my programs, figure out where I can get copies of all those programs to reinstall them. If any of it's licensed, I got to have the license number so I can put that back in. And a separate copy, not a backup, but a copy of all my data files, assuming you know where they're all at, because they've been having some changes, especially with universal Windows application apps that are storing information in hidden places. And I just discovered that recently. And so if some of that information is needed in your rebuilt system, you got to know where some of this stuff is at. AIs are there to help you if you're precise. And I have a small presentation, I hope, to do here this evening about some of my adventures. Okay. Anybody got any questions between Ron and what I said after the fact? Any comments? Everybody's hunky-dory, huh?
Is anyone not going to Windows 11?
Odds are in this group, no. But I do know, like I say, I know of at least one person, probably more than one, that I've been tech support for in the past that are on 10, and I have the sneaky suspicion most of them will stay on 10.
Yeah. Well, I'm still running a Windows 7 installation.
I have available, but I haven't run in God knows when, XP 7, 8.1, 10 of several varieties. I've got 11, and I've got Linux systems.
Yeah.
Or I have a couple old Macs I haven't done anything with in years because they're obsolete. So, I mean, it's one of those things, but only a few of us are really techs, and most people are not.
Right.
But I look at it this way. When it comes to computer technology, knowledge, and capability, say that there's a ladder with 100 rungs on it. I probably fall between 30 and 40 rungs up if I'm lucky. And other people are way above me on pay scale too, up that ladder. So I have done some things that normally people wouldn't do. And I've got the time. I'm retired.
Yeah.
I like experimenting. I am a do-it-yourselfer. I do all my repairs. I have never taken a computer into a shop to repair, ever. And I do my own repairs. If you watch your system carefully, a lot of times it will give you indicators something's up here. Maybe I'm getting sick. Maybe I got a cold. Maybe I got the flu. Hopefully I don't have COVID or something worse. But in either case, there is a problem. If you stop and address the problem to try and clear it up, all the better for you, because sometimes the problem may be corruption occurring in your disk. And the sooner you get corruption cleaned up and straightened out, the better life, because otherwise it snowballs and it gets worse and worse until you've got a non-bootable system. And that's not a joke. So you gotta be real cautious about corruption of the storage.
Hmm.
You even have to worry a little bit, though it's not that often, but occasionally RAM sticks go bad. And there are test programs out there that you can run. They have to be on a USB stick and booted up off the stick in order to run them. The main one is MEM, that's Mary Edward Mary, uh, test, TEST 86.exe. And you run that, and it'll either tell you it passed or it didn't. And if it didn't, there may be some instability, but it's still working. The problem is that instability may cause corruption when it's saving stuff to disk. And that's what is causing most, not all, of the corruption that occurs on your storage device. I found that out the hard way. I had at least 3 or 4 memory sticks go bad on me. But out of all the machines I've got and all the memory sticks I've got, that's very, very low. And usually it's very, very reliable.
Hmm.
So anybody got any other further comments? Otherwise, I guess I'll take a foray into what I was going to present. Anyways, all right, let's see what I can destroy. All right, where'd it go now? Ah, there we go. All right. I got 2 things here. All right. And now I'll close that down. Come on. Some of my tax systems are getting taxed without representation. All right. Now I got to get this back up. I already got that. I'm going to take that down. Nuts. Got to bring it soon. You got to share the desktop. Come on. Wow. Did it pop under? No. Oh, it minimized it. That's what happened. All right. Share. I got that. And I'm going to shoot this thing. I got the right to do it. It's mine. And this is a little bit of a slideshow. It's nothing much of anything. It's mostly to be able to show you some of the things that are going on here. I recently had, last month, I wanted to retire my real old 15-plus-year-old system. It's on Windows 11 unsupported, but it originally was on Windows 10. And years ago, Microsoft, in its wisdom, upgraded it to 11, even though it didn't support 11. And I've had it ever since, and it's been up to 23H2, which support still exists until October of this year, also for 23H2. I had a backup. I used that, but I lost some information. I recovered some from the original drive, added that to my disk, but I still lost some. Nothing I'm going to cry about. If it happens, it happens. I don't do but once a month backups, period. And that means I can run into a problem. And I usually don't have that much in the way of documents that I want to keep an extra copy around on a running basis. So this was a salvaging of an old style Windows system to the present and future. The old system didn't know anything about GPT partitioning, UEFI, and Secure Boot. And many of you who are in this meeting and or watching the video don't know what those are either, but that's requirements of modern supported Windows 11 systems. Next up, this is an image of the settings, systems, about of this computer, and it shows I have a drive that has formatted 477 gigabyte capacity. I have 16 gigabytes of memory. It says I got a video card, but it says no RAM. That's incorrect. It turns out in the salvaging of this system, the driver for the graphics card must have become corrupted. I corrected that, and the real memory is showing even right now on the system with 2 gigabytes of memory. And it says this is a Intel Core 2 quad core. It could also say a dual core. And and its speed of it. And down here, it confirms the same information about what's up here. Anything older than Intel Core i3, i5, i7, i9 is too old for support. Anything older than an AMD processor older than 2013 is too old a processor to support 11. There are things that are missing, normally speaking. There are some exceptions on the AMD side. As an example, there used to be a processor called a Phonom 2 processor, and it will run at least my Windows 11 23H2 unsupported software just fine because it has something the Core 2 processor does not have. So this one I've got to retire, but instead of doing a normal backup, I did a clone, and something went real wrong with the clone. It screwed up both the clone version and the original version. So then I also took a snapshot. This is Disk Manager in 10 and 11. And basically it says this volume, the whole disk, is a master boot record, or MBR it's called. And this is not supported by Windows 11 supported systems. They used to in the first few versions of 11, but at the same time too, you can't do it going forward. And so it gives you an idea. This has a small, healthy partition. I don't know what it was used for. I don't know what was in it. My C drive, then I have a recovery drive. That's where some of the tools are at. And this is too small of a recovery area. You got to have nearly double that amount of storage space for recovery tools since late Windows 10 into 11. At least 850 megabytes. Then this is my own creation. I moved from the C drive here, the page file, into its own separate partition. I also put in expansion of recovery store points. There's still a little bit here on C, but most of the space is over here on the D drive. That's optional. You don't have to have that on any system. And because it's an SSD, I always leave unallocated space because the firmware in the drive is designed that when cells start wearing out, they can't hold the storage of information correctly. They copy what they can to part of this raw area and then disable the area that's going bad. And they put in links to say, oh, that information that was there now is over here. And then you got a pointer to go back to continue the chain of information. The next thing I did was I got a good full backup of this. It took a long time because of the slowness of the system and the volume. The backup image was 194 gigabytes in size. That's with a 40% compression rate, which is default with my software. I then took it into some of my other machines and I took out their drives so nothing happens bad to them. I stuck this drive in one of those machines. It's a non-compliant machine, but it's modern, more modern. It's a 6th generation Intel system. And this is what it had. Now, this is that drive. I took the backup image. I had another 500 gigabyte drive. I restored the image to on the system. It has built in on the motherboard a graphics processor with 128 megabytes, which is nothing in dedicated memory. It's using primarily your shared memory, which is what this is here. This is for your application programs, your operating system, and the video needs it for rendering anything you see on the screen. So there's a lot of things taxing that memory. It is an i5 6th generation. The T at the end means that it's a 35-watt processor, somewhat like a laptop rated processor. And this just repeats it down here. I then took a picture of it, and I had taken, it's very hard now to find a free tool that converts MBR partitioning to GPT non-destructively. I found 2. I did use one of them. I was quite successful. As you can see here, it says it's now a GPT, even though when I restored the backup, it was an MBR. And it did it non-destructively. I then made a proper UEFI partition between 450 and 500 megabytes. I had my C. I made in advance, both of these were empty. They're around 850 or so megabytes in size for when I do an in-place upgrade. It'll use one of the spaces for workspace and the other one is used for recovery tools. And it will rebuild the UEFI doing just the in-place upgrade. So these are 3 empty ones and I left that alone. So that's what I did and I got to that point. Most people would never do what I'm doing, but I wanted to try it because I didn't want to have to rebuild this thing from scratch. It would take days, maybe a week or better to rebuild it. But I had to stop at that point there, and I had done an in-place of 23H2 to that drive. It rebuilt the UEFI, it did the recovery partition, and that third partition, whatever it does with it. I then had to stop, change to a different computer, fully compliant. And this one here, I didn't, I cut off the top. But anyway, it's a 7th gen, 8th generation Intel processor, And it's got 16 gigs of memory also. And it says, I now have, by doing an in-place upgrade, Windows 11 Pro fully secure boot capable of an ancient system that was basically obsolete more than a decade ago, as far as its whole structure. And I've been using it ever since then. And this is the final drive. This is now, I consider, a backup. After the Linux meeting, I'm going to take the drive out of this one here, do an image backup, and then I'm going to convert it because it has new things on it this drive I rebuilt doesn't have yet. And I want to do it that way deliberately. And then I got to retire the hardware, put in the replacement hardware, put the replacement drive in, and I'm back into business the way I have been. But it's a GPT. This is a real UEFI now. This has miscellaneous stuff Windows puts in, uses it kind of like a scratch pad, I think. And then this is the recovery tools over in here. And I have also the page file that I had built previously. And it's all working very beautifully. After you do an in-place upgrade in any system, you have to go through the Windows update process a couple times until it says, I can't find anything else. And once you've done that, you're in business. You can go from there. Now I can take that other drive that's happens to be sitting on my kitchen table. I can stick it in any compliant Windows system and boot it up. I can also boot it up because I gave an option to also boot up in legacy mode. So I can use any of my older Intel Core systems that I have, stick it in there, and run the same operating system I'm running on the desktop right now in front of us. So that's what I did. And that's all, folks, on that. Now, in addition to that little ditty, I have also I'm going to bring it up next, I hope. And we'll wait here and see if I get it up. I'm going to share something here. And you're going to get this in the chat. Both of these. Okay. Now, I want all of you to squint. And do a Control A. We're going to change this to about a 20-inch, 20 point, excuse me. And okay. Now, basically, I'm what this is here is an AI. To get some of this done, I knew a lot of knowledge, but sometimes you get so messed up in thinking. The best thing to do is go get an AI. I just bring up one of my other computers. In fact, I've got a laptop here that's an antique, not an antique. It's a Windows 11 laptop that somebody gave me because they didn't want it anymore. It's very low end, entry level computer, but I can run, as an example, Copilot, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, AIs. And I describe here what I just did verbally of what I did. This after that comes the questions I put in. I put them in bold. The answers came back in regular type, and I took out a little bit of white space so that this thing is big enough as is. And it gives you things to check out. But I also, in here, step 2, ran into some errors. The system was unable to specify the registry. I'm not only saying what I did out of their recommendation, I gave it feedback. That feedback helps it understand more what the problem might be and give me better results following this. And I then did the same thing again and again. Didn't like those options. It gave me some options here I didn't like, especially 2 and 5. I said are a last resort because one of them is a clean install and rebuild the whole thing, which I didn't want to take and spend what little time I have left on Earth here dealing with that. Then I continued on down, going back to initial response, checked compatibility blocks, and got some information as to what might be causing some of the problems that I was noticing. And one of the notices that came up had to do with trying to do an in-place, and I know many different ways of doing it. It could be on an external drive like a flash drive or an SSD or a spinning hard drive, or it can be internally an ISO file that I mount with File Explorer, or now called Windows Explorer. And all of them kept saying the same thing, and I tried a lot of other things. It kept basically saying, I cannot install this on a flash drive. And it made no sense whatsoever. So I kept going on and on and on. And it finally gave me this here. Portable operating system. Check this out. So I went Windows key plus the R key to bring up what's called a run box. I typed in regedit. You have to hold down the Control and Shift key and hit Enter if you're in your standard account. Everything the AI is telling me to do, you're supposed to be in the administrator's account. If you're in the standard account, and I do that a lot, you're going to have to put in the password. If I put in regedit in a standard account without holding down the Shift and Control key before hitting Enter, it doesn't have the authority to do anything. Or at best, it will show you things in a read-only mode and not allow any changes. So that gave me the ability to get in the registry. It said, look for this key. All this here is a single key. And the structure is you look for local machine first. There's a arrow out to the left side. You click that, and it'll start showing you submenus. The next level, you'll see a folder called System. You click the left side of it. Then you find Current Control Set. Click the left side of it, and you find Control. Now, once you got there, look in the right pane and see if it says Portable Operating System. If so, look at its value. If it's set to 1, double click it and change it to a value of 0. When I reran any way I wanted to, the in-place upgrade, everything went perfectly smooth. I have not seen this little problem at all in my entire life with Windows computers. This is the first time. How it got set, I don't know. Some things change and you don't know they did change. They're hidden from you. And this one got changed. That was the solution to my biggest problem. And I say so. I give it feedback. This was the problem. And once I did that, I gave additional information in here that gives you some more insights as to what I was doing and why I was doing it as well. And I'm going to put both of these into the share and the chat, excuse me. Chat box. And I want to, oh, come on, please cooperate. Oh, got a small problem here. Hang on a minute. We'll try it again. Boy, this thing's giving me a hard time. See that right now. Oh, you are rotten. I got to do it their way. They want to give me a migraine headache. Now I got to go find that again. Thank goodness I know where it's at. What is this thing doing? Oh. All right, I'm going to see if I can do that one. Ah, got one. All right, let's try the other one. I've got the AI log. It doesn't like my PowerPoint. Can't tell you why. Oh, it says it's still in use. That's why. Hang loose. All right. There we go. And you're going to get in my way, and I'm going to shoot you. Get off of my screen. And hang loose. We're going to try doing that again. The reason why it wasn't doing what I want, because here we go. Now you're going to get that too. So you got both of those. I left the PowerPoint still running, and that's why it wouldn't go into the chat. Next thing up, if there's no questions or comments on what was covered,
I have a question.
not allowed. Go ahead.
I remember in the old days,
That
there
was
used to
last
be a
week.
partition in older computers where like HP had a recovery area when you're looking at the various segments of the hard drive,
Yes,
the partitions, and they
Yes.
used to have recovery software in there.
yes.
Did that eventually get abandoned or
It's
was
still
it
there,
replaced?
but they're very primitive tools, and you got to know how to use them. It took me quite a while to learn how to use them just for what I absolutely need. It's not for the faint of heart. On top of it, though, they made a new set of recovery tools. You can, in some cases, fix a non-booting system startup. And it's nice and easy. You got command line tools. If you know the right commands and parameters, you can use that tool. You can do a restore point if you have one, and it will put, if there's a registry problem that's causing your issue, it puts a new copy back when that restore point was made that's in better condition, the one that's screwing things up. You also have options of restoring from other devices in some cases, being able to change your startup so that you can go into safe mode or safe mode with networking or safe mode command line mode. And there's one or two other options. Also turn off your computer when you're done and then boot it back up, and hopefully everything's fixed. So there's the new set. It started in late Windows 10 and continues into 11. And then you have some other tools that are extremely primitive. You have to do them from the command line in those modern set of tools. And those are something. Let me share my screen. There's one other thing for those folks that are lucky enough to have 10 at the moment. I'll save it. All right. Anyway, if you go to Windows settings and go to system, you come down and here's recovery. Click recovery. Fix problems on your PC while they're still working to some degree. You've got some other troubleshooters that might help you. Most of the time it's going to an online chat, and sometimes it wants your permission to go into your machine to try and see if it can figure out what the problem is and resolve it for you. Or if it cannot, put you in contact with a human tech to try and resolve your problem. Get out your credit card. However, besides that, something new is in here. This here is to fix some seriously sick systems that are still running, not terminal to where they don't boot. And if you do this, it will do a non-destructive in-place upgrade, so you don't have to download from Microsoft, if necessary, put the information onto a flash drive or learn how to mount a ISO image in Windows Explorer to do an in-place upgrade. This will do the whole thing for you online as long as you have the internet. And I have used it once and it worked just fine. It allowed me to keep everything. If I wanted to, I could uncheck that and it would do a clean install. So it gives you the option. You can do one or the other. Restore points. That's another one I want to bring up. But that's a different tool. So I'm going to come down here to Windows search bar, put in restore, create restore point. And I'm going to bring that up here. And I got to give it permission because it's a system operation and that requires administrator authorization. I don't know exactly how long this image is going to last. They are slowly still changing the old stuff. In here, System Protect allows you to see any restore points you have, but somewhere in 10, they turned off restore point, and quite often in 11, it may be off. The only way to find out is if it says it's on, it's creating some restore points at times when you're doing certain operations like Windows Update. However, you also have the option to do a manual restore point. When you know you're going to do something that could end up in a disaster, create the restore point first. It may bail your butt out of a problem. And I'm not joking when I say that. And title it something meaningful. It's looking for a title here. And I even put the date of it. Manual updates. Some tools will remove them, and some tools will leave them there for up to 30 days. Usually, restore points are very temporary. I mean, within 2 to 3 days max, it's usually considered obsolete and worthless to you. So those that are older than a couple days old, forget it. Anything you change after that restore point that's up to 2 or 3 days old, you're going to lose if you have to restore it. So that's another thing. This works in 10, it works in 11, but like I say, in Microsoft's wisdom, on a lot of systems, they turn it off. You have to turn it back on. You have to go into configuration to turn it on. You turn it on here, it'll say disable otherwise, and then you have to make an allotment of space on your drive. On some systems, I only do like 1% on the C drive, and if I have a secondary partition like I showed you in the slideshow, I may have only 1% here on C drive, and on the other partition, in this case called D, I put maybe 3, 4, 5% of space for overflow if I need it. Because sometimes you're doing certain operations and each step of what you're doing is creating its own restore points. Example, if you're putting in drivers, sometimes each driver is creating its own restore point. In some cases, you have in Revo uninstall and Geek uninstaller, they create a restore point for every program you're trying to remove from the system. So those are, you can have suddenly a rush of restore points. Whatever one you choose to restore, that's how far back it goes. So look at the date. Always make sure these things get dated. That way you know how old they are for sure. So I'm going to cancel that out there. Any further questions at this point? Shame on you. All right, be that way. See if I care. No, come on. Oh, you're gonna be obnoxious, I see.
Tim, circling back to something Bert said,
Go ahead.
he was talking about in older computers, they used to have a manufacturer's OEM recovery partition, which
No,
would reset to the manufacturer OEM.
most of those, some of them still exist, but most of them don't. What that does only is a clean install. That's all those were made for.
Yeah.
And say you want to sell your computer, you should do a disk wipe of drive C, and then you can do the restore point because it was activated by a keyboard key, and it'll do a clean install back into C. And there won't be anything recoverable from there. What
Yeah.
in the world? You gotta be kidding. I got a little message on mine that's makes 0 sense.
Yeah, but I just want to point out these days, instead of a recovery partition, you've got something usually online that the manufacturer will provide that's a recovery tool, which will do essentially the same thing.
Yeah, but in general, they don't take up space anymore, and most of those fit in a 8 to 10 gigabyte partition. Now you're using that usually in your drive C, that space.
Yeah.
But I'm having a bear of a time waking up. There we go. My goodness. Trying to bring this up. So I'm going to continue on since we got time. 2 minutes left. All right. Okay. By the way, there is a DuckDuckGo browser, and they now have a YouTube player in it that bypasses all of the ads, where regular YouTube does not. And I almost forgot about that and sharing sound. Come on, stereo. All right.
Welcome to another video from explainingcomputers.com. On October the 14th, 2025, support for all standard versions of Windows 10 comes to an end. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly how things now stand based on the latest information. And I'll then outline 10 possible options for computers that cannot officially move to Windows 11. So, let's go and get started. As I've just noted, on October the 14th, 2025, Windows 10 reaches end of support. This means that Microsoft will no longer provide free software updates or security fixes. After support ends, PCs running Windows 10 will still work just fine. But they will be increasingly less secure, and Microsoft recommends moving to Windows 11. The problem is, a large number of computers currently running Windows 10 do not have the option of moving to Windows 11, or at least not in a manner supported by Microsoft and using an automatic upgrade process. This is due to Windows 11 requiring a processor that Microsoft deems compatible, as well as other prerequisites such as TPM 2.0 security hardware. In December 2024, TechPowerUp and some other websites reported that Microsoft had loosened Windows 10 install requirements, with TPM 2.0 not needed anymore. However, this was not true. Rather, Microsoft had just updated this page about using workarounds to install Windows 11 on unsupported hardware. This continued to state that installing Windows 11 on a device that doesn't meet Windows 11 minimum system requirements isn't recommended. And on December the 12th, 2024, Microsoft added this further update to confirm the article was originally published on October 4, 2021, and that Windows 11 minimum system requirements remain unchanged. So, all that happened in December 2024 is that TechPowerUp and others distributed clickbait. Microsoft has not revealed how many computers are still running Windows 10, so we have to rely on third-party data. For example, according to StatCounter, in May 2025, about 53% of Windows PCs were running Windows 10 and 43% Windows 11. And if we scroll down for this chart, we can see that whilst the gap has been decreasing, the lines have now ceased to converge. StatCounter's figures are based on tracking data from over 1.5 million websites. Even so, they may overestimate the number of Windows 10 users. This said, even if the data is significantly inaccurate, it does suggest that a large percentage of computers are still running Windows 10, probably equating to several 100 million desktop PCs and laptops. And Microsoft's recommendation is that all of these should be sent to landfill by October the 14th. If you have a computer running Windows 10 that does not meet the requirements for Windows 11, and you want to keep using it, there are at least 10 possible options. These generally involve mitigation, migration, or adopting a hybrid strategy, with the best option depending on what you use your Windows 10 computer for and whether you're prepared to spend any money. So, let's consider each option in turn. Firstly, you could decide to do nothing, which is easy but which will make your computer increasingly less secure. Some people believe that they can compensate for a lack of security updates by running good antivirus and anti-malware software. However, whilst these detect viruses and other malware and prevent them from running, they do not patch flaws that are discovered in an operating system after its release. Rather, this is what Windows security updates are for. So, if you choose to do nothing, you will be taking a risk. And this is probably only sensible if your computer is never used for online banking, online shopping, and similar activities. Secondly, you could choose to run Windows 10 offline. This would be secure, but is likely to be impractical unless you have another computer that you can use to access the internet. Thirdly, you could buy extended security updates or ESUs from Microsoft. Since November 2024, businesses have been able to purchase these for $61 for the first year, $122 for year 2, and $244 for year 3. And ESUs are free with virtual Windows 10 PCs purchased via Windows 365 or similar subscriptions. Microsoft is also making ESUs available for educational and home users. For those with an educational Windows 10 license, ESUs have also been available since November 2024 and cost $1 in year 1, $2 in year 2, and $4 in year 3. However, for individual Windows 10 Pro or Windows 10 Home users, ESUs will cost $30 for 1 year only, with no option to extend beyond 12 months. It seems that Microsoft last updated information on ESUs on May 21st, 2025, with the wording for individual users being very telling. The phrase, "if you need more time before moving to a Copilot Plus PC or other new Windows 10 device," makes it pretty explicit that Microsoft is using the end of support for Windows 10 to try to get us to buy new hardware. And I personally take the initial mention of Copilot Plus PCs to indicate that Microsoft sees these as the future, with Windows 12 likely to require an MPU. I also find it shocking that we still don't know when or how we'll be able to purchase individual ESUs. Although I guess releasing these details would not improve this chart. And I strongly suspect that ESUs will only be available to Windows 10 computers that are logged in to a Microsoft account. Moving on, another mitigation option is to purchase third-party security patches. These are available from companies including Across Security, who claim that their zero-patch service will provide critical security patches for Windows 10 for at least 5 more years. However, there may be some risk relying on Windows security patches that don't come from Microsoft. A final potential option for retaining a secure version of Windows 10 is to migrate to a Windows 10 Enterprise Edition from a long-term servicing channel or LTSC. Windows 10 Enterprise LTSC was created for special use devices, such as medical scanners that require long-term support. 4 editions have been released, and of these, Windows 10 Enterprise LTSC 2019 has support and will therefore receive security updates until January 9th, 2029. Note that migrating to Windows 10 Enterprise LTSC would require a reinstall, and that there may be issues with newer hardware and software support. You would also need to purchase an activation key and to find a way to download the ISO file, which is officially only available to businesses with a Microsoft Volume licensing account. Our next option is an unofficial upgrade to Windows 11. I've shown how to achieve this in several videos, and a clean install of Windows 11 on unsupported hardware should work on any PC or laptop with a 64-bit processor and at least 4 GB of RAM. Unsupported Windows 11 installations currently receive security updates, but not feature updates or updates to the next version. So, if you choose to install the current version of Windows 11, which is 24H2, on unsupported hardware, it will reach end of support on October the 13th, 2026. To continue to receive security updates, you would then have to upgrade to Windows 11 25H2. This should be released in September or October 2025, and is likely to have 2 years of support. This means if you're thinking of doing an unofficial Windows 11 install, it may be worth waiting until 25H2 is released. Back on our table, another option is to fully migrate to a Linux-based operating system. This may be a popular Linux distribution, such as Ubuntu, Linux Mint, or Zorin OS, that's easy to set up on most computers without having to resort to the terminal. And I've detailed the process in many videos, including Switching to Linux, a beginner's guide. Zorin OS also sent out a recent release about using their operating system as a replacement when Windows 10 reaches end of life. And this highlights the irony of millions of computers being subject to planned obsolescence on October the 14th, which is International E-Waste Day. Another Linux alternative is a Chromium-based operating system such as Chrome OS Flex or FidoOS. Either of these can be used to give many older computers the same operating system as a Chromebook. However, the big downside of migrating to any kind of Linux-based operating system is that the computer will no longer be able to directly run Windows applications such as Microsoft Office or Photoshop. And this brings us to 3 hybrid options where Windows 10 is maintained in some form. One hybrid solution is to set up a dual boot with Linux and an offline install of Windows 10. This would allow you to select either Linux or Windows on boot, so providing access to your existing Windows applications securely offline, with Linux available for online activities. And I've detailed how to set up a dual or single drive dual boot in another video, which I'll list in the video description. A second hybrid option is to migrate to Linux, but to set up an offline Windows 10 virtual machine so you can still use your Windows software in a secure environment. And once again, I've covered how to do this in another video. The advantage of running Windows in a virtual machine is flexibility, as you can work in Linux and Windows simultaneously. However, unlike with a dual boot, Windows can never access all of your computer's processing, memory, and other hardware resources. So, a dual boot is better for gaming or running applications like video editors. As a final hybrid strategy, you could continue to run Windows 10, but with a Linux virtual machine that you use for all web browsing, email, and other online activities. And whilst this would not be entirely secure, it should be safer than continuing to go online in Windows 10 after it stops receiving security updates. After October the 14th, 2025, computers running Windows 10 will continue to work perfectly well, with many people completely unaware that anything has changed. And just as some people choose to travel in a vehicle without wearing a seatbelt and never have any accidents, So I'm sure there'll be many people who continue to use Windows 10 without security updates and never have a problem. However, those with a less cavalier attitude to risk will want to take a more cautious approach. And in that context, I hope you found this video useful if you want to continue to use in a secure manner a Windows 10 computer that does not officially support Windows 11. But now that's it for another video. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, please press that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And I hope to talk to you again very soon.
Oh. All right. It gives some good options when you get down to the that bottom of the list and talks about dual boot of Linux with Windows. Don't do it on OneDrive. There are too many things that can happen to your Windows system that it looks like you lost your Linux system. What you need is some special tools, know how to use the special tools, and you can get your Linux system back up and running. It's not a piece of cake, but it usually doesn't take real long once you understand how to use the tools. And I'm not going into depth there. The next thing I got up here, I'm not going to show you much of anything here. Ooh, unexpected error. Try again later. That's a new one for me. Okay. Now, this is another user group, Central Florida Computer Society, after Windows 10 2025. They go into information similar to what CCS here has been doing and some other groups as well. All these are on, and a lot more on the handout I'll give you at the end of the meeting. Next, why I don't expect a Windows 10 apocalypse. This is an article. He's got an accompanying video if you want to watch it. And basically, he's telling you, hey, 10 won't just vaporize. It won't go away, so to speak. And you'll keep able to run everything you're currently doing, but less and less of your software may be working and upgradable. You could be exposed to threats that do either real damage to your system or personal information theft, et cetera, by using the old system. So I thought I'd toss that one in. Here's another article, Linux or Landfill. End of Windows 10 leaves PC Charities with tough choices. And this is not a joke. I use, besides eBay, shopgoodwill.com. And they've got tons of old hardware laying around, along with a lot of vendors that maybe eBay and or standalone businesses that don't have an e-presence. They're old computers that nobody is going to want, and it's actually not nobody. Those people who know how to use Linux or create one of the Chromebook options can use the old hardware to their heart's content, but they cannot absorb the volume of hardware that's out there. And this stuff is going to mostly end up not that recycled, mostly in landfill. Guess what? your garbage and other things you throw out of your house that are picked up by your local community, put the same stuff in landfills also. And when they get to a certain level, they keep increasing the cost of dumping anything in the landfill until finally the landfill fills up and is closed down. And now you got to find a new place to dump everybody's garbage. This mentality that we have of a disposable society is really going to start coming home to us. The disposable economy includes not only vehicles, but all your smart appliances in your home. They have a fraction of the life of older devices, and they whatever they cannot recycle materially ends up in a landfill somewhere. And this all is going to fill up, and we're going to run out of space. Okay, we can do like people have done in the past. They dump waste in our waterways, streams, rivers, seas, and oceans. And we eat what comes out of the sea. And we desalinate where we can. That's expensive to have drinking water. How much do you want to spend, folks? Each generation is going to be paying more and more. Bert?
I think, one of the things about computers is we did this major shift from 32-bit to 64-bit that created a lot of obsolete programs and a lot of obsolete hardware. And, so maybe there's a way to, still use 32-bit software beyond Linux or something else like that, that would essentially revamp how computers are used.
Well, there is some software, but less and less of it. Even in Linux, you only got, realistically speaking, maintained 32-bit versions totaling about 6. And there isn't much beyond that. The only 32-bit software you can realistically get are what's called abandonware by some, because it's old software that nobody develops anymore. It's just sitting there, and you can, for very little money, sometimes even free, download that software and run it to your heart's content with the same kind of risk as continuing to run Windows 10. That's not a joke. But the amount of hardware that was 32-bit, I think, has been overshadowed quite a bit by 64-bit hardware that is classified on October the 14th as obsolete. Now, myself, Dennis here, Bob Premick here, and Wayne, we do have some knowledge to be able to run Linux systems. And as such, we can use that older hardware that otherwise goes into the dump. The machine I want to retire here with a Core 2 quad in it, I got to retire it from Windows, yes. But if I want to, I can put on Linux distributions galore and run them as though it was a brand new machine. So these are some of the reasons why we're giving people options, knowledge about what's going on. And one of the penalties is, what do you do with a hardware that's in excess that cannot find a new home and use? It goes into the grinder. They grind it up. The metal is extracted and recovered and recycled. Everything else goes into the landfill.
But of course, the programs part of the computer, if you try and hold on to the old stuff too long, it just won't be there anymore. So you may have hardware that works, but no programs.
Well, you could also have programs which, because they're obsolete, flaws are already well known by the bad people that could infect those machines if they are ever put online by running that old hardware and software. And the operating system is required. So right now, you have to have a 32-bit version of Windows to run Windows programs, such as Windows XP 7, 8.0, 8.1, and 10, until they stop making the 32-bit version. Hardware with no OS does nothing but sit there and collect dust, or is used as a doorstop to keep a door open instead of letting it close itself.
But beyond the OS, the software that people use, won't keep working forever. And so you may have hardware that still works that's old, but you won't be able to get the programs anymore.
Right. Well, I mean, I have a bunch of old pieces of software I haven't touched, and God only knows when they happen to be laying around, and I haven't bothered to toss them out or try and give them away to anybody who wanted them. I have a Office 97 through 2003, which I think was the last version, or 2004. I have Corel Draw that I won as a door prize at one of our in-person meetings. Never used it. Things like that. I mean, I've got lots of stuff. I got even old OS discs, but they may not install at this point because usually they want to call home to do an install. And if somebody has a workaround that, okay, I might be able to take my old OSs that are on CDs and DVDs and install them on old hardware and make that part run. And then I can, I know online places I can download software that'll run on it. You just have to be savvy to make sure that it's 32-bit compatible software.
And then there's no malware in there.
Well, that's the risk you take. See, once the software is abandoned in particular and is no longer of value per se, there are sites that have this all over the place, and some, not necessarily all the software, could be altered by bad people who know how to get into the site, take a piece of software out, put some kind of bad code in it, put that back on the site, and you come along and download that piece of software, and you've got probably a back door into your computer. It's a real thing. It's not fake. We're not trying to scare anybody. We're trying to inform people realities. Anything else? I got one or two others here.
Let's chat about Microsoft, shall we? Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for AskLeo.com. So of course I have to start any discussion about Microsoft with a little bit of a caveat, full disclosure. I mean, it'll end up being a topic as from some of the stuff I want to talk about, but the reality is that indeed, I worked at Microsoft for a little over 18 and a half years, from 1983 through 2001. That was over 24 years ago, so I've been away from Microsoft longer than I was at Microsoft. But those were fun times. I like to think of them as the golden years of Microsoft. We enjoyed a lot of new developments, exciting new technologies. We grew the company. When I started, it was 360 people. When I left, it was, multiple tens of thousands of people. I'm not even sure anymore. It was quite the company. And of course, while I was there, I worked on many things. In fact, it's been a while since I've updated it, but I actually still have a resume. I'll see if I can't add a link to that in the notes for this video, as well as a link to some other, Microsoft hiring practices and the day that I left Microsoft, just for a little bit of context as to what I was about then, what it was like then. It's kind of entertaining, and yeah, those are really some fond memories for me. Now, one of the reasons I mention that, of course, is because one of the things that happens to me a lot is I will post a video or write an article about some Microsoft technology, and I'll have an opinion. Either it'll be a positive opinion, or, as we'll see in a minute, it won't be negative enough. All right. One person will come along, they will view that video. Typically, I gotta believe sometimes that all they really do is read the title to the video. But to give them the benefit of the doubt, perhaps they do watch the entire video. And then they immediately turn around and call me a Microsoft apologist, a Microsoft shill, whatever, without the context of having seen the 1,500 other videos that are out there, or the 5,000 other articles that are out there, many of which are most definitely not pro-Microsoft, most definitely not questioning, or supporting Microsoft's decisions or making apologies for them. My approach to Microsoft has always been that I found them a very interesting company, a very insightful company, a very exciting company to work for, but far, far from perfect. And that has been getting worse of late, specifically for the average consumer, which ultimately are the people that I'm trying to help here on Ask Leo. The conclusion that I've come to in recent months especially is that you and I, the average consumer, the individual, we're no longer Microsoft's customer. They don't seem to care about individual users. And I say that based on what I would see as questionable decision after questionable decision after questionable decision. Decisions that negatively impact our ability to use Microsoft technology. Now, even that has to get a little bit nuanced, because sometimes it's simply a matter of opinion. I get that. Everybody's got opinions. You either like something or you don't like something, and that sometimes can affect your worldview, but often affects your ability to get done what it is you're trying to get done. No, what I'm talking about are more significant changes that honestly make no sense. These are changes like multiple versions of Outlook. Versions of Outlook that are being forced on us, and I'll talk about that in a second, that are less capable than the versions they're replacing. Of course, one of our favorites, OneDrive, which is, it's a great tool in concept. There are several tools like it out there, but there are features that defy explanation. Not that the features don't have good intent, but the implementation makes no sense. One of the comments that I made somewhere was that back in the day, something called data loss. If you were testing a product that was about to be released, and you came across a bug that caused the user to run the potential for actually losing data, that was what we would call a showstopper. We would actually not ship the product if it really ran a reasonable risk of causing individuals to lose data. That's apparently not a thing anymore, because OneDrive's backup feature has designed into it the very real probability of individuals losing data. I don't understand it. I don't get it. We've seen similar pushes with Copilot. We've seen similar pushes with Office itself. So many of these decisions, when viewed from an individual consumer's perspective, make no sense. They just don't add up. Now, that's why I say that you and I, as individual consumers, we're probably not their target market anymore. They're more interested in corporate, because honestly, that's where the money is. But what that means is that a lot of these decisions are being made not with individual consumers in mind, but with corporate in mind. Then some of these things start to make a little bit more sense. I still don't know what they're going to do about getting rid of the fully featured, very powerful, original Microsoft Office Outlook, since they seem to be running that out and replacing it with, Outlook New. But the bottom line is, I really think that a lot of the decisions that they're making do not have you and I in mind. Now, I mentioned one of the things that they seem to be doing, it certainly feels like they're doing, is forcing features on us. And I say that both in terms of, like, Copilot is showing up on your machine, whether you want it or not. OneDrive, it kind of sort of makes sense that it'd be there as part of Windows, but enabling its backup feature, whether you want it or not, well, they're not really enabling it whether you want it or not. They're just using what I would call dark patterns so that you would enable it accidentally without realizing the ramifications of your decisions. These kinds of things, these are being forced on us. We're being coerced or fooled into turning these features on. Here's a radical idea. And Microsoft, if you're listening, I have no idea, but if you're listening, consider this. How about instead you create features, you implement products, you make decisions that are so good and so obvious and so easy that we as consumers want to turn them on. We want to install them. We want to use them. Because right now, the way things are, we're looking for ways to turn them off. We're looking for ways to get rid of them. We're looking for ways to make them go away. Too many of the articles and videos that I create are about avoiding Microsoft features. That tells you pretty much everything you need to know about how these features are perceived by at least this segment of your user base. Make good features. Make them so good that we want them. Because honestly, the fact that you feel you have to force them on us tells me you don't believe in the features. You don't believe that they're good enough for people to choose to turn on. Now, one of the recent videos I did, of course, was what happens at Windows 10 end of support. And a number of comments on the videos are really short. The answer to what happens after Windows 10 end of support? Linux. You know, I sympathize. I do. I love Linux myself. I really do. You're probably aware that I actually run it on the AskLeo.com server There's actually multiple servers that I deal with on a daily basis that are all Linux-based. Honestly, there's a part of me that wonders if I weren't doing Ask Leo and trying to support the Windows user base, would I be more likely to be running Linux myself on my machines? And the answer is, well, probably. I mean, it's the kind of stuff that, for me at least, yeah, I really enjoy. However, as much as the Linux proponents would love to evangelize otherwise, it is not ready for prime time for the average consumer. I have to emphasize the average consumer. Linux has gotten way better. There are individuals, all demographics of all levels of interest, who are playing with and even switching to Linux. If you're looking for a distribution, Linux Mint Cinnamon seems to be very popular. I've heard very many good things about Zorin. And honestly, I'm considering doing a course on Linux. Like I said, Linux is great. I love it. But it is not an operating system that I would throw at my grandmother, for example. Again, I want Linux to win. I really do. As we'll see in a minute, I'm not sure where we're headed in terms of technology. I want Linux to be the answer, but it's not there. I would like to hope that Microsoft will somehow return to some kind of a consumer focus. They've done it in the past, and they've done it relatively well. The issue is that I don't see it. All of their attention seems to still be in the corporate high dollar value market, where you and I are simply too small a potato to actually get their attention and make decisions or build products that really, really serve us well. Honestly, I see it all as this huge, huge lost opportunity. Kind of like Skype, right, which was recently announced that Skype was going to be discontinued in a few months. Skype was an opportunity for Microsoft to take on a market, to really own a market. They were already there. They were the default answer to that particular problem. And they let it languish. They just left it behind. My concern is that the same thing is happening for consumers in Windows. It shouldn't have to. The opportunity is there. Microsoft could put together a wonderful package for consumers. They're choosing not to. They're choosing to let this segment of the market wither on the vine. Where do we go when that happens? Where do we as individual users go when that happens? Well, I've talked about Linux already, and if you want to look into Linux, by all means, do it. Like I said, I'm seriously considering doing a course on switching to Linux to investigate just what it means, if nothing else, to show just what it will mean for the average user to make the switch. I know a lot of people talk about Macintosh, which again is great. They do wonderful hardware. If you've got the budget for it, it tends to be a little bit pricier. It's a trade-off, right? Microsoft makes decisions, Apple makes decisions. You have to live with the decisions for the platforms that you've chosen. But like I said, they're good stuff. I have Macs here. My wife is running a MacBook Air, I think it is. It's been a while. I've got a Mac Pro in the basement that's acting as a server for me. So again, good stuff. Not everybody's cup of tea. A lot of people mention Google Chromebooks, or Chromebooks in general. Again, good technology. I love what they are. I actually have given them to individuals who are not techie at all and are just interested in doing the basics, email, web, and so forth. Great. What about the rest of us? What about those of us that are using Windows and want to keep using Windows because we either do like much of what Windows has to offer, or maybe we're required to use it for some software compatibility or work compatibility or whatnot. I just don't know where that future leads. Windows 11 has told us a few things about what Microsoft is prioritizing. It doesn't feel like it's us. And yet, if Windows is your thing, if Windows really is what you need, the options are few and far between. I'm sounding not particularly hopeful, and only because Microsoft has kind of sort of beaten it out of me for the past couple of years with their approach to many of the product decisions that I've talked about so far in this video. I will continue to do what I do, but rather than have Ask Leo become a Microsoft bashing channel, because there's plenty of those out there, or a here's how you get rid of Microsoft channel, because again, there's plenty of those out there. One of my goals is to, while still being frustrated with the decisions that Microsoft is making, present ways of dealing with those decisions that allow the average consumer to continue to use Windows as pragmatically as possible. It'll never be ideal. A lot of the things that I talk about on a day-to-day basis are workarounds. Shouldn't have to be like that, but that's where we are with respect to Windows. I think there's hope in the long run. I just don't know what it looks like. I know people are talking to me about Windows 12. To be clear, to be super clear, never has Microsoft talked about Windows 12. There is nothing ever been said about there even being a Windows 12. Pragmatically, I'm sure it'll happen someday, but when, what it might entail, all that kind of stuff, it's pure speculation. It's pure rumor. We don't really know what the future holds. I'm hopeful that Microsoft might pay attention to the consumers again someday, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. So yeah, when it comes to Windows, I'm going to continue to answer questions about Windows. I'm going to continue to help people use Windows in the ways that they can. It'll be how to work with it as pragmatically and as usefully as possible, with, again, pragmatic alternatives when those present themselves. Does this sound like a Microsoft shill to you? I don't think so. I laugh whenever I get those comments just because I know what I think about what's going on in the world. I'm not hating Microsoft enough to their like, but the fact is I'm certainly not a Microsoft sycophant either. They've been good to me, but they're not being good to the consumer right now, and that has me deeply concerned. Anyway, that's me chatting about Microsoft. I don't even have to ask for you to share your comments because I know that this is a very passionate subject for many. But please, let me know what you think of all of this down in the comments to this video or on the page on which this video is posted. And I will talk to you again soon. Thanks for paying attention. Thanks for watching.
Okay, I got one last thing. And this here is an article, Size Matters. Boy, I don't know who set up this title. Think about it a while. At any rate, it has to do with making passwords stronger. And basically, a lot of people keep them less than 10 characters long. That's bad. There's many other things about it. I, for some time, jumped originally from 8 to 12 to 16. I'm at 20 character passwords. And I use special characters when they're allowed on a given site. So it makes a big difference. Now, as far as what Leo mentioned about Microsoft being non-consumer like in nature and more corporate like, I've seen that same thing with Google. I've seen it to a lesser degree, but still somewhat like it with Apple as well, since I've been in all three arenas. So it's not something that's just Microsoft. Google has its issues too. They let software languish, and when it doesn't meet a certain criteria, it's gone. And same with Apple, some of the things it does. And now a lot of them are getting dragged into court, either as a kind of monopolistic in some part or in whole. And that may end up causing some of these big corporations to be broken up because they're anti-competitive primarily. Any comments, ideas? No comments? I'm surprised. Well, I'm gonna find my software list and get that out. So I gotta stop share. I gotta bring up chat. Come on. This century. There we are. File. And I want to go up one and I want to go to that one.
Tim, I think something should be noted about why Microsoft is doing what they're doing. Also, Google and everybody else. It's called monetization. They need to have some kind of a revenue stream. And their revenue stream is to take each and every little piece, slice, and sliver of their software, their operating systems, your hardware, and their services, and turn it into a place from which they can get money.
Right. Profit.
Yeah. And they both need it and they want it. Their shareholders demand it.
Yes, but that's normal in open market. If you can buy stock in a company, that's an open company, and the management, CEO on down, is obligated to do everything to maximize profits because that gives dividends to the shareholders, raises the stock price value so that when a person sells their stock, they get more money back than what they paid for the stock. That's
Yeah.
normal corporate capitalization.
And a lot of people lose sight of the fact that this is a lot of what's driving the changes in Windows, in Mac, in the hardware, the software, Mac abandoning Intel, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that he brought up that are in, say, 10 and 11, more in 11, I noticed, and I'm taking them out. For one, Power Automate. That is a tool for companies that are doing work in the cloud. How many of us consumer class people are using such a tool?
But how many of us are being asked to do so? For example, the new Outlook. For example, Microsoft 365.
Yes.
For example, OneDrive as the default storage location.
But a lot of people are giving up, especially once they're retired, the Microsoft environment. And they do it in part because of money. And if the company they work for buys them the license software, etc., yeah, they'll use it. If they got to do it out of their own pocket, they start asking questions. is it really worth it? Because how much is all this software really being used? It's taking up a lot of space somewhere, but how much of it am I really using, even if it's not on my physical local machine?
Yeah.
And if I'm using very, very little of it,
Mhm.
why am I paying on a contiguous subscription basis for the piece of software? And that includes Adobe's software as well.
You could say the same thing about Netflix
Yep,
or Disney
yep,
or everything else that is now on subscription basis.
that's
So
correct.
that's a change in the way the world works.
That's right.
But in terms of what he was talking about, the new outlook to me is insane. And in fact, as long as you keep your Microsoft 365 with Office on it, you should never have to use the new Outlook. I mean, this is about developing software that wasn't complete and doesn't have or won't have any of the features, so they can put Google in the same Outlook, Google Mail in the same Outlook. That's all this was about when it comes
Yeah.
down to it.
And also too, when it comes to like Outlook as one good example, uh, it's a browser. How many browsers do we have? God only knows. I have lost track of them.
Well,
But
I use Edge, which is the Microsoft system, and that works fine for me. Now, I don't need to find another I don't need to find another system because this one does what I need.
let me finish what I was trying to allude to. I do most people like me do their email in the cloud. In other words, they open up a browser, they open up a tab, open up their account for email and read their email. The problem comes in how it functions, how it looks, and the big bugaboo that a lot of people really just start screaming about is changing the look and feel of the software they've been using. Even like for you, you go back to MSN, which is pretty old style. You have apparent adaptability to the change. A high percentage of people do not have that adaptability.
Yeah, but 30 years of mail certainly has evolved, but so have other products.
That's right. But the
And
thing
so there's nothing wrong with
if
it evolving more, except that we already got one in Outlook that
if
works fine, and it's also compatible with my Apple products, and it's not something that needs replacement.
that's perfectly fine, but the thing is, you're telling us just what I just got done saying. You have an adaptable, open mind to the changes that come in the software and the hardware that we're all using over the years. A lot of people don't have that capability in their head. I'm not joking when I say that. And therefore, their first thing is to start yelling, flaming, I hate this, I hate that, I hate everything under the friggin' sun.
Well,
Well,
Tim,
there's a lot of,
a
go ahead.
counterpoint to Tim, which may be in line with what you're saying, Bert, as in, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Look what they just did to Yahoo's webmail interface. They took it from a perfectly usable browser-based interface to something that's more like a phone app, unusable to those who need to get some work done.
Well, the compatibility, I can get my data on my computer, I can get it on my phone. It's all the same data. It's just different viewers based on what they wanted. One other thing, he was complaining about OneDrive, and I use OneDrive 100%. And he was complaining about the backup function, which means that if you have files on your drive, they automatically back up. but not all the files either, only certain folders. Now, why they only put certain folders on there seems stupid to me, but they haven't gotten around to finishing it as I see it. But the fact that stuff gets backed up without you doing anything in those folders seems fine. If you put everything in your documents folder, that gets backed up. That's one
Yeah.
of those folders that gets backed up.
Yeah, but it gets backed up at a price. You start chewing up OneDrive space like nobody's business.
I have a terabyte of OneDrive space. Well, I don't
That's
have a
good.
clue. I
But
use
most people
76
don't.
gig.
Most people don't.
Most people
see it
don't
that
have
way,
that.
Richard. And by and large, I know of a lot of people, CCS members over decades, that won't touch OneDrive with a 10-foot pole or Google Drive or even Dropbox.
I don't mind Google Drive.
Now, the other thing about those massive storage online is they're not backed up. They're replicated. And replicated means that if they got 100 sites, your data goes to 100 sites, so that if any of them go down for any given reason, such as a fire, hurricane, tornado, direct hit, etc., your stuff is still probably available. To lose everything, you're probably talking a nuclear war and EM pulses that wipe out our electronics altogether.
Look at on my phone, my iPhone, it gets backed up to iCloud.
That's right, but
And that's the same thing, no matter what, what's there.
iCloud is not backed up storage. It's replicated. They cannot, under any circumstances, do a real backup of the stuff that's in the cloud.
What matters is whether I can get my data if there's a problem.
You may not.
Well,
That's
I just replaced my phone
There are
data completely. It took 50 hours.
there are
What did
lots
happen?
of there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have cloud accounts and they have lost data. They can't get back. What do you tell them? And they stored it on the cloud.
Look, at over the years, I've had computers that crapped out, we'll say. The hard drives were, I had a software program once that was supposed to eliminate duplicates, and it rewrote all the data and the headers wrong. The
Yeah.
whole thing was gone.
Yep.
And
Data
that's
disasters
about
can
the
happen
only
to anyone.
biggest error I've ever seen.
Data disasters can happen to everyone, including cloud services.
In
Cloud
United
services have been known historically to lose people's data, even people's entire accounts.
And online accounts are targets for the criminals. They are hacking them, and they're not completely successful, but enough are successful enough to get a lot of our information, and especially corporate world doesn't want that information out.
Now,
Well,
Microsoft,
keeping it on your local drive isn't any better when it comes down to it,
it
because all it
depends
takes,
on whether it's encrypted. It depends on whether it's encrypted.
even if it's encrypted, because there's such malware nowadays, they'll figure out a way to get to your stuff.
If it's encrypted, they can't make any sense of it.
I mean, if you want to use a cloud, the smartest thing to do, there's a piece of software called Cryptomator. If you put that on your system, everything you push up to the cloud would be encrypted. And if you did a very good pass key, it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of effort and computer time to break that encryption to find out what's inside of this file.
Yeah, but there is a problem. Many of these services will delete files that they think are encrypted.
Well,
Not everybody does, but there are services that do.
There is no security, no matter what you do. There can't be, because you're dealing with different vendors. Look at it, where even when somebody gets in the middle of WordPress, for instance, all the time, you got stuff coming on. I send you the email updates that all these things change almost every day because there's stuff going on, and they gotta, there is no such thing because there are so many third-party people in the chain, whether you're on any vendor, Microsoft or Google, whatever, that these things are not one company. These are chains of different companies that work together, and there is no security. It's just a matter of time when somebody breaks in. And there's been so many break-ins for corporate businesses. You know, there is no any data that you had has already been broken into. Has already been, they got passwords, they got emails, they got everything about you. I mean, that's the reality. So you can pretend it's not there, but I mean, can you name a company that hasn't been broken into? Probably not. Every bank, the security software companies, they've all been broken into. I mean, everybody's been broken into. The government's been broken into.
Bert, there's something you may not understand about encryption. And that is that if something is encrypted and hashed, it still would take currently existing computers billions of years to decrypt it.
Yes, but now we're getting into quantum computers.
We are
We're
not.
getting into other
Not
things.
anywhere close. Not within the next decade.
Well, again, things will change, software will change and evolve.
It's like saying that LLMs are intelligent. They're not.
Well, you know, if you go back to the old days when you wrote a check and and you signed it, and that check you gave to somebody and they gave it to their bank and their bank gave it to the Fed and the Fed sent it back to the bank it was drawn on. I mean, one time I worked for Continental Bank and I carried the checks from the Continental Bank to the Fed. I mean, this was a daily thing. We have gone through so many different generations where privacy was never there. We just didn't care.
Today, those kinds of transactions are electronic and they use something akin to the blockchain. And the blockchain is pretty much an immutable record of every transaction along
And why
the way.
do people break into that and steal the?
Blockchain has never been broken.
No, they steal the data.
Data means nothing if it is encrypted, and you cannot steal a link in the blockchain. You can't.
I understand.
It's an immutable
the theory,
record.
but I mean,
And
it's
there
no
are
different
similar.
than any other database that we've had for years and years.
It's not a database. It's the entire process.
It is a database. It's just a chain of transactions connected from one to the next.
They are connected in ways that reveal any attempt to tamper.
That depends on the management of the data. And so many things have been broken into, like crypto coins.
No legitimate exchange has ever been no legitimate blockchain has ever been broken in unless it was originally designed by people who had what was known as proof of stake. They owned the blockchain and then they could manipulate it. But that was forgery. And it was also fraud.
But blockchains are just another invention of a database. Same as a spreadsheet might take line item by line item with a sequential number. That's all it is. It's just
There's very different math involved, very different math. And because there is such math involved, again, it would take literally billions of years to break that kind of encryption and that kind of a record, unless it were designed with flaws, with someone on the inside being able to forge an entire blockchain. That has happened a couple of times.
well, but what is fraud about?
It's usually about people selling something as a blockchain that isn't really a true blockchain. But anyway, enough.
You asked the question, what is fraud? And you asked that in 2025?
Hey, Bob, I just want to ask one thing. You
Yeah.
mentioned earlier
Mhm.
that some clouds, I thought you said some cloud services don't let you store encrypted.
Right. There have been
Why
many
would they
times.
want that? Why would they do
There
that?
are many times when the people running these cloud services have said that posting an encrypted file was a violation of their terms of service and they deleted the file. Sometimes it has to do with the size of the file. Sometimes it has to do with their suspicion that people are doing things like uploading movies and stuff like that. It depends on the service and it depends on how they define their terms of service. And I bet none of us can read an entire end user licensing agreement from end to end.
Right.
So none of us know what the terms of service are. And I doubt that any of us in this group, maybe Bert knows, every detail about the Microsoft terms of service and their
Well,
data
I
retention
mean, that's why
policies.
you have AI to read it to you, summarize it.
Well, you don't read it to you, you get it to summarize. The bad part is sometimes it gets it wrong doing the summary. And at the same time, too, it may leave out what are key points that you reading the whole terms of use you would see and find very important to you, but the
Yeah.
AI did not.
When it
Well, when
comes
you
to,
read a credit card terms of service and it gets updated every year or month or whatever, I mean, just because you read it and you didn't like it doesn't mean you can do anything about it anyway.
the thing, lawyers love, that is to say, defense kinds of lawyers love it when they find out that their opponents have used AI to summarize or to go over legal documents, because almost anything that has any AI involved in it in the law profession is going to be flawed.
I don't doubt that at all.
And so you can easily get all these motions thrown out and all that.
I brought up in my demo there and that of use of AI to solve a problem. In Copilot, you have a default of a quick search.
Yeah.
I seldom use it. I don't need to unless it's non-computer related. I go down to the think deep, and now they've got a third layer that's even deeper for researchers. And in either case, I would use the higher level ones so I get less hallucination and I get better sounder results back from the AI.
We're still just beginning AI. Because the various systems now are based on different databases, different data that they have accumulated that they give you answers.
Not only that, but they have a different perspective in many cases.
Well, they've got different algorithms that figure out how to answer your question.
Right.
But if they don't have the information, I mean, you can't do, somebody doing healthcare has different data than somebody who's doing betting the stock market, or somebody who's doing you know, how do you plan healthcare for an older person? Those are all different things. And we've gathered years of information that they've stolen. And it's also based on what data that you have in your own computer. And so because they're trying to focus these things on your personal information to get it to be more focused for something you want, it's just going to repeat back the things you already know.
Well, we need to be wrapping this up
Yeah.
because it's near 10 o'clock Central Time, and this thing's gone on near 3 hours.
Mm.
So I'm going to be calling it quits. And I'll say good night unless somebody's got a last comment.
Good session. Good session.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Good night.